These cars aren't for people like you. Sales manager Derek Mitchell physically stepped between Amara Thompson and the gleaming Porsche 911, his hand deliberately blocking her view of the interior. The Tuesday afternoon sun streamed through Elite European Motors' floor-to-ceiling windows, casting harsh shadows across the showroom's polished concrete floors. Amara had just finished her yoga class downtown. Her athletic wear and sneakers seemed to offend Derek's gold-plated sensibilities. She approached the $180,000 Porsche Taycan, running her fingers along the hood's smooth surface. Derek's theatrical gasp echoed through the showroom. "Ma'am, please don't touch the merchandise." Nearby, other customers, affluent, white, well-dressed, handled vehicles freely. They received wine service and personal tours from attentive staff. Security guard Terrence Williams watched uncomfortably from his corner post as Derek used sanitizing wipes on the car where Amara had touched it. Have you ever been made to feel like your very presence was contaminating someone else's world? 12 minutes until the quarterly owners' meeting begins, Derek muttered into his headset, checking his watch with exaggerated importance. The discrimination intensified like a gathering storm. Derek's voice carried deliberately across the showroom as he announced to no one in particular, "Our financing requires a minimum $200,000 annual income verification." Floor manager Stephanie Carson materialized beside him, her smile sharp as broken glass. "Maybe try the Honda dealership downtown," Stephanie suggested, her tone dripping with false helpfulness. "They're more accommodating." Amara maintained her composure, requesting vehicle specifications and pricing information. Derek's response was swift and dismissive. "I don't think you understand what you're looking at here." His words carried the weight of decades of practiced condescension. The insult deepened when Derek literally turned his back mid-conversation, dismissing her entirely. He began rearranging brochures on a nearby table, making it clear that Amara no longer existed in his world. College student Zara Okafor, browsing luxury cars with her wealthy parents, noticed the exchange. She discreetly started an Instagram live stream from behind a BMW display. "This is actually happening right now," she whispered to her phone camera. The stream caption read, "Racism at luxury car dealer. Witness this." 89 live viewers quickly climbed as word spread through social media algorithms. Comments flooded the chat. "Get their names! Record everything! Call the news!" Amara's phone buzzed with a notification. The screen briefly displayed, "Board meeting reminder, Automotive Holdings Group," before she dismissed it. When she reached for her wallet to check something, a Platinum American Express card caught the light momentarily. Her Hermes Birkin bag rested on a nearby chair, a detail that would mean nothing to Derek, but everything to those who understood luxury. She opened an elegant leather business card holder, the words "Executive Suite" visible through the transparent window. With practiced calm, she photographed Derek's name tag and the dealership's business license displayed on the wall. General Manager Bradley Hoffman emerged from his glass office, summoned by Derek's increasingly animated gestures. Bradley was a man who measured worth in dollars and demographics, his assessment of Amara swift and damning. "I'm sure we can find something more appropriate for your needs," Bradley said, his smile never reaching his eyes. He gestured toward a separate building visible through the windows. "We have certified pre-owned vehicles that might be more suitable." 9 minutes remaining until ownership review, Derek announced to his headset again, the countdown adding urgency to their coordinated effort to remove Amara from their pristine showroom. Amara's request was simple and reasonable. "I'd like to speak with the owner." Bradley's smirk revealed everything about his assumptions. "The owner doesn't meet with walk-ins." The pause before walk-ins carried decades of coded language, the kind that had been refined in boardrooms and country clubs where people like Amara were discussed, but never present. Stephanie whispered something to another sales associate, both women glancing at Amara with barely concealed disdain. The message was clear. This was their territory, their rules, their world. Amara was an intruder who needed to understand her place. The showroom's atmosphere grew thick with tension. Other customers continued their leisurely browsing, attended by solicitous staff members who refilled wine glasses and answered every question with enthusiasm. The contrast couldn't have been starker, a masterclass in selective service that spoke louder than any explicit policy. Zara's live stream captured it all. Her viewer count had jumped to over 300, the algorithm sensing engagement and pushing the content to wider audiences. Local lifestyle blogger Kennedy Adams noticed the trending hashtag and arrived within minutes, her professional camera equipment ready to document what was rapidly becoming a public relations nightmare. 6 minutes until quarterly ownership assembly, Derek's voice carried across the showroom again. The countdown felt ominous, as if Amara's time in their world was literally running out. Amara opened her leather portfolio with deliberate precision. She pulled out a single document and approached Bradley with it. Her movements were measured, controlled, and professional. Everything about her demeanor suggested someone accustomed to boardrooms and high-stakes negotiations. Bradley glanced at the document with the same dismissive attitude he'd shown throughout the encounter. "Corporate letterhead means nothing," he said, handing it back without truly reading it. "Anyone can print fake credentials these days." Stephanie rolled her eyes dramatically. "Right? Like we haven't seen every trick in the book." The casual cruelty of their dismissal was breathtaking. Here was a woman presenting professional credentials, maintaining dignity under assault, and requesting basic customer service. Their response was to assume fraud, deception, and unworthiness. 3 minutes until the owner arrives for the meeting, Derek announced, his voice now carrying a note of triumph. Whatever meeting was beginning soon, it clearly gave him confidence that Amara's disruption of their perfectly ordered world would end shortly. Terrence Williams shifted uncomfortably at his security post. Unlike his colleagues, he seemed to recognize something fundamentally wrong with the scene unfolding before him. His training told him to watch for actual threats, not create them from assumptions and prejudices. The tension reached a crescendo as Derek threatened the ultimate escalation. "Ma'am, if you don't leave voluntarily, you'll be escorted out permanently." His words carried the full weight of institutional power, the kind that had been used to exclude and diminish for generations. Zara's livestream hit nearly 5,000 viewers, the hashtag witness this trending locally. Kennedy Adams was live blogging updates to her 50,000 followers, the story spreading across multiple platforms simultaneously. Through it all, Amara remained unnaturally calm. She checked her watch with the same precision Derek had shown earlier, as if she too was expecting something important to happen very soon. Her phone rang. The caller ID displayed Corporate Legal Department in crisp, professional fonts. The countdown had reached 0, but the real timer was just beginning. Regional Director Vanessa Sterling arrived like reinforcements in a war Amara hadn't declared. Her designer heels clicked against the polished floor with military precision as she strode through the showroom's main entrance, leather portfolio clutched against her chest like armor. Derek briefed her with animated gestures, his hands painting Amara as some sort of threat to their carefully curated environment. Vanessa's eyes swept over Amara with the calculating coldness of someone who'd built a career on reading people and finding them wanting. "I understand there's confusion about our clientele," Vanessa said, approaching with a smile that belonged in a courtroom rather than a car dealership. Her tone carried the authority of someone accustomed to making problems disappear through sheer institutional weight. The demand came swift and humiliating. "I'm going to need to see proof of income and credit score documentation before we can proceed with any vehicle demonstration." Vanessa's words hung in the air like a challenge, daring Amara to object. Across the showroom, a middle-aged white couple examined a $200,000 McLaren without anyone requesting their financial credentials. The husband sat in the driver's seat while his wife took photos. Their salesperson offered champagne and discussed customization options with enthusiasm that bordered on reverence. The contrast was a masterpiece of selective service. Bradley instructed Terrence to monitor the situation closely, the euphemism barely concealing its true meaning. Stephanie whispered urgently to other staff members, her pointing finger and meaningful glances creating a circle of complicity around Amara. Zara's Instagram Live had exploded beyond her wildest expectations. The viewer count hit 2,347 and climbing, comments streaming faster than she could read them. The algorithm had detected engagement and pushed her content to automotive enthusiast groups, social justice communities, and local news followers. "Y'all, this is insane," Zara whispered to her phone. "They're literally treating her like a criminal for wanting to buy a car." Local lifestyle blogger Kennedy Adams had arrived with professional equipment, her camera capturing everything from multiple angles. Her live blog post was already generating hundreds of shares across LinkedIn and Twitter, the story spreading through business networks like wildfire. The comments were unanimous in their outrage. "Call the news! This is 2024! Get their corporate number!" Through it all, Amara maintained a strategic patience that seemed to unnerve her antagonists more than anger would have. She methodically documented everything, photographing name tags, license numbers, and policy postings. Her phone's Notes app is filled with timestamps and direct quotes. "I'd like to review your customer service policies and complaint procedures," she said, her voice carrying the precision of someone familiar with corporate accountability structures. Derek's mockery was immediate and cruel. "What are you, some kind of lawyer?" He turned to Stephanie with a laugh that invited her to share in his amusement at Amara's perceived pretensions. The countdown in Derek's earpiece had reached its conclusion, but a new timeline was emerging. 6 minutes until quarterly ownership assembly, he announced with renewed confidence, as if reinforcements were imminent. Amara requested manager credentials and corporate contact information, reasonable requests that somehow transformed into acts of defiance in their twisted worldview. Her calm professionalism seemed to infuriate them more than any display of anger could have. The systematic exclusion reached new heights of choreographed cruelty. Staff members created a physical barrier around Amara, clustering close enough to make her feel cornered while maintaining plausible deniability about their intentions. Meanwhile, other customers continued receiving royal treatment just steps away. A young executive examined a Bentley Continental GT, test driving it around the block while sales staff waited with contracts and financing options. An elderly couple received a detailed presentation about a Maserati's features, complete with espresso service and comfortable seating in the client lounge. The message was unmistakable. This world had room for some people, but not others. Vanessa's voice carried across the showroom as she discussed security protocols loud enough for Amara to hear every word. The subtext was clear. They were treating her presence as a security issue requiring special measures. "In cases like this," Vanessa said to Bradley, her voice pitched for maximum psychological impact, "we have to be very careful about liability and safety concerns." The peak humiliation came when Bradley suggested calling police for trespassing. The word hung in the air like a threat, transforming Amara from customer to criminal with a single suggestion. Terrence Williams shifted uncomfortably at his security post. Unlike his colleagues, his training focused on actual threats rather than manufactured ones. "Ma'am hasn't done anything wrong," he said quietly, his words barely audible but morally clear. His small act of conscience went unnoticed by management but was captured by Zara's live stream. Comments immediately praised him. "Security guard has integrity. At least someone has sense." The tension reached its breaking point as Amara opened her elegant business portfolio with deliberate precision. The leather was expensive, the kind that spoke of boardrooms and executive meetings. She pulled out a single document and presented it to Bradley with the confidence of someone accustomed to having their credentials respected. Bradley's dismissal was swift and contemptuous. "Corporate letterhead means nothing," he said, barely glancing at the document before handing it back. "Anyone can print fake credentials these days." Vanessa's eye roll was theatrical. "Right? We've seen every scam in the book. Fake business cards, counterfeit checks, forged employment letters, you name it. We've dealt with it." Their casual assumption of fraud was breathtaking in its audacity. Here was a woman presenting professional documentation, maintaining dignity under assault, requesting basic customer service. Their response was to assume criminality and deception. The clock on the showroom wall showed 2:47 p.m. Whatever quarterly meeting Derek kept referencing was apparently imminent, and his confidence suggested it would bring resolution to what he clearly viewed as Amara's unwelcome disruption of their ordered world. 3 minutes until the owner arrives for the meeting, Derek announced into his headset, his voice carrying a note of triumph. The countdown felt ominous, as if Amara's time in their pristine environment was literally running out. Zara's livestream had reached 4,992 viewers, the hashtag had dealership discrimination trending locally across multiple platforms. Kennedy Adams' blog post was being shared by civil rights organizations and business leaders, the story taking on a life of its own in the digital ecosystem. The showroom's atmosphere grew thick with anticipation. Staff members exchanged knowing glances, their body language suggesting they expected vindication soon. Customers continued browsing, blissfully unaware that they were witnessing what would soon become a case study in corporate accountability. Amara remained unnaturally calm throughout the escalating hostility. She checked her watch with the same precision Derek had shown earlier, as if she too was expecting something important to happen very soon. Her composure was either remarkable self-control or the confidence of someone who knew something they didn't. Her phone rang, cutting through the tension like a blade. The caller ID displayed Corporate Legal Department in crisp, professional fonts that suggested this wasn't a call from a friend or family member. Derek's confident smile began to waver slightly. Vanessa's eyes narrowed as she tried to read Amara's expression. Bradley stopped mid-conversation with another staff member, drawn by something in Amara's demeanor that suggested the game was about to change dramatically. The countdown had reached 0, but everyone in the showroom was about to discover that they'd been counting down to the wrong event entirely. Amara answered the call with professional precision. "Thompson here. Yes, I'm at the Westfield location." The voice on speakerphone was crisp, authoritative, unmistakably corporate. "Ms. Thompson, shall I notify building security about the situation?" Derek's confident expression began developing hairline cracks. Something in the caller's tone suggested this wasn't a friend offering moral support. This was business. "No need, Marcus. I'm conducting an impromptu performance review of our customer service protocols." Amara's response carried a weight that made Vanessa take an involuntary step backward. The word "our" hung in the air like a revelation waiting to explode. Bradley's mouth moved silently, trying to process what he'd just heard. Performance review? Our protocols? The pieces weren't fitting together in his comfortable worldview where people like Amara belonged outside establishments like his. Amara reached into her portfolio and withdrew her corporate identification badge with deliberate slowness. The movement was theatrical, designed for maximum impact. When she held it up, the words were unmistakable. Automotive Holdings Group, Chief Executive Officer. Vanessa Sterling's face drained of color so completely that her carefully applied makeup looked like war paint against pale skin. The leather portfolio slipped from her suddenly nerveless fingers, hitting the polished floor with a sound that echoed through the suddenly silent showroom. Bradley Hoffman's mouth fell open audibly, a small gasp escaping as his brain struggled to reconcile the woman he'd been dismissing with the title now gleaming in the afternoon light. "Y'all, she's the CEO!" Zara's voice carried across the showroom as her live stream exploded beyond anything she'd experienced. The viewer count hit 7,234 and climbed exponentially as the algorithm detected the viral moment and pushed it to automotive groups, business networks, and social justice communities across multiple platforms. The phone call continued with Marcus from Corporate Legal Patching through additional verification. "Ms. Thompson, would you like me to conference in our compliance department regarding today's assessment?" "That won't be necessary at this moment," Amara replied, her voice carrying the calm authority of someone accustomed to making decisions that affected thousands of employees and millions in revenue. "I'm documenting everything for the quarterly board review." Kennedy Adams' professional camera captured every moment, her live blog post going viral across LinkedIn with business leaders sharing and commenting in real time. The story was spreading through corporate networks like wildfire, reaching executives who would recognize the implications immediately. Derek stammered incoherently, his earlier confidence evaporating like morning mist. How were we supposed to? I mean, you didn't identify yourself as... What? Amara's question was surgical in its precision. As someone worthy of basic human dignity? As someone deserving of the customer service you provide to others? The systematic nature of their discrimination was being exposed in real time, broadcast to thousands of witnesses who were screen recording everything for posterity. Vanessa attempted damage control with the desperation of someone watching their career implode. Ms. Thompson, we had absolutely no idea you were visiting today. If we had known... Exactly. Amara's interruption was soft but devastating. You had no idea. But your assumptions spoke volumes about your actual policies versus your written ones. The corporate counsel joined the conference call, his voice carrying the weight of legal authority. Ms. Thompson, for the record, can you confirm your position and authority over dealership operations? I am Chief Executive Officer of Automotive Holdings Group, which maintains a controlling 67% stake in Elite European Motors and 46 other dealership locations across 7 states. Today's visit was part of our quarterly diversity compliance assessment, conducted without advance notice to ensure authentic customer service evaluation. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the background music seemed to stop as the full implications hit everyone simultaneously. Derek's world was crashing down around him in real time. But the quarterly meeting, the owner was supposed to... I am the owner, Derek. Amara's words were delivered with the finality of a judge's gavel. The quarterly meeting you kept referencing? That was me arriving to review this location's performance metrics. The countdown he'd been announcing wasn't marking Amara's departure, it was marking his own professional execution. Terrence Williams quietly said what everyone was thinking. I tried to tell them something wasn't right about this whole situation. His words were captured by multiple recording devices, becoming an instant meme across social media platforms. Comments flooded in praising his integrity while condemning the management team's behavior. The corporate legal department continued their verification process with clinical efficiency. For documentation purposes, Ms. Thompson owns 67% controlling interest in the dealership chain, serves on the board of directors of Automotive Holdings Group, and has full authority over operational policies and personnel decisions. The legal implications became immediately clear to everyone except Derek, who was still processing the reality that he'd been discriminating against his own boss for the past hour. Stephanie Carson's face had gone ashen as she realized every whispered comment, every dismissive gesture, every moment of complicity had been observed and documented by the person who controlled her employment. Bradley Hoffman was calculating rapidly, trying to determine if there was any possible way to salvage his position. His mathematical mind was running scenarios, but every equation led to the same conclusion: complete professional disaster. Amara revealed the full scope of her strategic documentation. This entire interaction has been recorded per our corporate policy on diversity compliance assessments. Everything said and done here will be reviewed by our legal team, Human Resources Department, and Board of Directors. The hidden camera revelation sent shockwaves through the remaining staff. They'd been so focused on judging Amara that they never considered they were being evaluated themselves. Zara's livestream had reached 12,500 viewers, and was being shared across TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn simultaneously. The hashtag #CEOReveal was trending nationally, with business schools already discussing the case study implications. I don't understand, Derek said weakly, his voice barely above a whisper. You're dressed like... You look like... Like what, Derek? Amara's question hung in the air, forcing him to confront the ugly truth of his assumptions. Like someone who doesn't deserve respect? Like someone who couldn't possibly have earned success? The silence stretched uncomfortably as Derek realized any answer would only deepen his hole. Kennedy Adams was live tweeting the developments to her network of business journalists and civil rights advocates. The story was being picked up by local news stations, with reporters already en route to cover what was rapidly becoming a national story about corporate accountability and workplace discrimination. The quarterly performance review I was conducting has revealed systematic patterns of discriminatory behavior that violate federal civil rights laws, state consumer protection statutes, and our corporate code of conduct. Amara continued with the precision of someone who'd spent years in boardrooms and courtrooms. Vanessa's attempt at corporate diplomacy was pathetic in its transparency. Surely we can resolve this internally without involving outside authorities. This stopped being an internal matter the moment you decided to live stream your discrimination for thousands of witnesses, Amara replied, gesturing toward Zara's still recording phone. The court of public opinion is already in session. The phone call with corporate legal took on an ominous tone as Marcus asked, Ms. Thompson, shall I notify the compliance department to initiate formal proceedings under our anti-discrimination protocols? Document everything first. I want a complete review of this location's customer service records, sales statistics by demographic, and all internal communications regarding customer qualification procedures. The scope of the investigation was becoming clear. This wasn't just about one afternoon's behavior, but about systematic patterns that could expose the entire organization to federal scrutiny. Derek made one final, desperate attempt to salvage something from the wreckage. Please, I have a family. I can't lose my job over a misunderstanding. Amara's response was measured, professional, and devastating. Derek, this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a conscious choice to treat me as less than human based on your assumptions about my worth and place in society. That choice has consequences. The corporate legal team's final verification came through the speakerphone with clinical clarity. For the record, Ms. Amara Thompson is confirmed as Chief Executive Officer of Automotive Holdings Group, with full authority over personnel decisions, operational policies, and compliance enforcement across all subsidiary dealerships. The reversal was complete. In the span of minutes, Amara had transformed from unwelcome intruder to ultimate authority. The people who'd been trying to force her out now faced the reality that their professional futures rested entirely in her hands. But the most devastating revelation was still to come. As Amara prepared to address the systematic changes that would follow, one final secret remained that would transform this from a personal victory into an industry-wide reckoning. The showroom had become a theater of corporate reckoning, with Zara's live stream serving as the stage for thousands of witnesses. Comments flooded in from business leaders, civil rights advocates, and ordinary people who recognized the broader implications of what they were watching. This is bigger than just one dealership, commented a verified business school professor. This is about systematic discrimination in luxury retail. Kennedy Adams was fielding calls from national news outlets wanting exclusive interviews. CNN, MSNBC, and Fox Business were all requesting statements about the CEO discrimination incident that was rapidly becoming a case study in corporate accountability. Amara checked her watch again, a gesture that now carried entirely different meaning. In exactly 15 minutes, I'm scheduled to present quarterly diversity metrics to our board of directors. This location's performance was already under review before today's educational experience. The data behind her words was devastating. Automotive Holdings Group tracked customer satisfaction scores by demographic, and Elite European Motors had been flagged for 3 consecutive quarters of declining performance among minority customers. Your customer satisfaction rating among black clients is 38% compared to 91% for white customers, Amara continued, reading from her tablet. That's not a statistical anomaly. That's a pattern of discriminatory service. The numbers hit like hammer blows. Bradley's face reflected his growing understanding that this wasn't just about hurt feelings or political correctness. This was about measurable business failure that could be tracked, analyzed, and legally prosecuted. Stephanie Carson was frantically calculating whether her recent behavior could be classified as a civil rights violation under federal law. The answer was becoming uncomfortably clear, but Amara wasn't finished revealing the scope of her investigation. What you don't know is that I've been conducting mystery shopper assessments at all our locations for the past 6 months. This wasn't my first visit here. It was my third. The revelation hit like a tsunami. She'd been testing them repeatedly, and they'd failed every single time. On March 15th, I was told financing wasn't available for my demographic. On April 22nd, I was directed to look at used vehicles despite requesting new models. Today's performance completed a pattern of systematic discrimination that violates both federal law and our corporate values. Derek's legs nearly gave out as he realized he'd been discriminating against the CEO multiple times, creating a documented pattern that transformed this from an isolated incident into grounds for federal civil rights violations. The corporate legal team's voice crackled through the speaker with ominous authority. "Ms. Thompson, shall we initiate the Section 1981 civil rights complaint with the Department of Justice, or handle this through internal disciplinary measures?" The choice between federal prosecution and corporate justice hung in the air like a sword. "We'll address that in the board meeting," Amara replied. "But first, I want to understand exactly how deep this discrimination goes." She pulled up additional data on her tablet, numbers that painted a picture of systematic exclusion across the entire operation. "This location has the lowest minority customer conversion rate in our network, 47% below company average. Either you're all incompetent at sales or you're actively discouraging certain customers." The mathematics of discrimination were laid bare, impossible to deny or explain away. Vanessa Sterling made one last desperate attempt at damage control. "Surely we can implement additional training, sensitivity workshops, diversity initiatives." "Training?" Amara's laugh was sharp as broken glass. "Do you need training to treat human beings with basic dignity? Do you need workshops to provide equal customer service?" The absurdity of requiring education to behave decently exposed the deeper rot in their organizational culture. Zara's live stream had exploded to over 15,000 viewers, with major media outlets now embedding the stream in their breaking news coverage. The story was evolving from local incident to national conversation about corporate accountability and systemic racism in retail environments. "What happens next?" Amara announced to the room and the thousands watching online, "will determine whether this company has a future worth preserving." The real twist wasn't just who Amara was, it was what she was about to do with the power she'd just revealed. The systematic changes she would implement would transform not just this dealership, but create a model for corporate accountability that would ripple through entire industries. The game had changed completely, and everyone was about to learn that true power lies not in punishment, but in the ability to create lasting change that makes discrimination impossible to hide and costly to maintain. Amara pulled up the dealership's performance dashboard on her tablet, numbers that would determine the professional fate of everyone in the room. The data was brutal in its clarity, each metric a nail in the coffin of their carefully constructed denials. Elite European Motors generates $89.3 million annually across 3 luxury brands, she began, her voice carrying the authority of someone who lived and breathed these numbers. "Your profit margin is 12.7%, placing you in the top 15% of our network." The financial success made their discrimination even more inexcusable. They weren't struggling to survive, they were thriving while systematically excluding customers. Customer satisfaction scores tell a different story. 45% among black clients versus 91% among white customers. Hispanic clients rate their experience at 52%. These aren't random variations, they represent systematic service disparities that violate federal civil rights law. Bradley's face reflected his growing understanding that this wasn't about hurt feelings or political correctness. This was about quantifiable business practices that could be prosecuted under Title II of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and Section 1981 of the Civil Rights Act of 1866. The legal framework was ironclad and devastating. Amara continued her data-driven assault. Today's incident represents a textbook violation of federal anti-discrimination statutes. Legal liability exposure is calculated at $4.7 million minimum, not including punitive damages that federal juries typically award in cases involving deliberate, systematic discrimination. The numbers hit like physical blows. Derek's earlier confidence had completely evaporated as he realized the scope of his legal exposure. Discrimination wasn't just morally wrong, it was financially catastrophic. Security footage from the past 6 months reveals 23 similar incidents involving minority customers, Amara revealed, accessing cloud-stored video files on her tablet. Each incident documented, time-stamped, and available for federal review. Stephanie Carson's face went ashen as she realized every whispered comment, every dismissive gesture, every moment of complicity had been recorded and cataloged for potential prosecution. The systematic nature of their discrimination was being exposed with surgical precision. Internal communications paint an even clearer picture, Amara continued, scrolling through email records that painted a damning portrait of institutional bias. Bradley's emails reference qualifying the right demographic 17 times in the past quarter. Stephanie's training notes include steering protocols for different ethnic groups. The documentary evidence was overwhelming. Their discrimination wasn't unconscious bias. It was deliberate policy implemented through coded language and systematic practices. Vanessa Sterling made a desperate attempt at damage control. Surely these communications have been taken out of context. Context? Amara's response was surgical. The context is a pattern of deliberate exclusion designed to maintain this dealership as a whites-only space while maintaining plausible deniability for legal purposes. Her words stripped away every euphemism and exposed the ugly truth beneath their professional veneer. The corporate legal team's voice crackled through the speaker with clinical authority. Ms. Thompson, Federal Compliance Review indicates clear violations of Civil Rights Act Section 1981, which provides that all persons shall have the same right to make and enforce contracts as enjoyed by white citizens. The legal framework was expanding beyond simple discrimination into contract law violations that carried both civil and criminal penalties. Performance review findings indicate immediate termination for cause is warranted for Derek Mitchell, Amara announced with the finality of an execution order. Systematic discrimination, hostile work environment creation, and violation of federal civil rights statutes. No severance package. Final paycheck subject to legal review for policy violation penalties. Derek's professional death was swift and total. 23 years in automotive sales ending with disgrace and potential federal prosecution. Bradley Hoffman, demotion to junior sales associate, 40% salary reduction, 18-month probationary period. Any future discrimination complaints result in immediate termination and personal legal liability. The fall from general manager to entry level was complete professional humiliation, but it was mercy compared to what federal prosecutors might demand. Stephanie Carson, 30-day unpaid suspension, mandatory completion of 40-hour bias awareness certification, quarterly performance reviews for 2 years. Failure to maintain satisfactory diversity metrics results in immediate termination. Each punishment was precisely calibrated to send a message throughout the organization that discrimination carried real consequences. Vanessa Sterling's regional authority crumbled as Amara continued. Corporate probation, removal from advancement consideration, quarterly compliance audits. Your region leads the company in discrimination complaints. That pattern ends today. The ripple effects were spreading beyond this single location to impact regional operations and corporate policy. Financial consequences extend beyond personnel actions, Amara revealed, pulling up insurance and regulatory documents. Dealership license review by the State Automotive Board, federal discrimination complaint triggering Department of Justice investigation, insurance premium increases of 340% due to civil rights liability classification. The business implications were staggering. Discrimination wasn't just morally wrong, it was financially ruinous. Projected brand damage across social media platforms, $12.4 million based on current viral spread and negative sentiment analysis, she continued, referencing real-time social media monitoring data. Zara's live stream has reached 1.2 million views across platforms. Kennedy Adams' article is trending on LinkedIn with over 50,000 shares. The public relations nightmare was quantifiable and growing exponentially. But Amara wasn't finished. Legal citations include violations of Civil Rights Act Section 1981, state consumer protection statutes under California Unruh Civil Rights Act, and Federal Fair Housing Act provisions that extend to commercial transactions. The legal framework was comprehensive and devastating, covering federal, state, and local anti-discrimination laws that created multiple avenues for prosecution. Immediate implementation of Equity First customer service protocol begins today, she announced, revealing the systematic changes that would transform operations. Anonymous bias reporting system installed company-wide, monthly third-party audits by certified diversity consultants, customer service body cameras mandatory for all sales interactions. The technological solutions would make future discrimination impossible to hide and costly to maintain. Community investment fund of $250,000 established for affected customers and civil rights organizations, Amara continued. Additional $500,000 allocated for company-wide bias training and diversity program expansion. The financial commitment demonstrated that these weren't empty promises, but substantial investments in systemic change. Amara's personal authority became clear as she revealed her background. Harvard MBA, former Goldman Sachs executive, built this automotive empire from a single dealership to 47 locations generating $500 million annually. I know what successful, inclusive business practices look like because I created them. Her credibility was unassailable, her authority absolute. Diversity isn't charity, she concluded with devastating precision. It's profitable business strategy. This location will prove that point or cease to exist. The ultimatum was clear. Change completely or face closure. Corporate legal delivered the final hammer blow. The Federal Trade Commission has been notified of systematic discrimination patterns. The Department of Justice Civil Rights Division will review all documentation for potential criminal prosecution under federal hate crime statutes. The scope had expanded beyond civil liability into potential criminal prosecution, transforming this from a business dispute into a federal case. Implementation begins immediately, Amara announced. Failure to comply with any aspect of this remediation plan results in immediate dealership closure and personal prosecution for civil rights violations. The showdown was complete. Systematic discrimination had been exposed, documented, and destroyed through strategic application of corporate authority and federal law. Derek Mitchell was escorted from the building by security, his career in automotive sales permanently ended. Bradley Hoffman began the humiliating process of moving his belongings to a junior sales desk. Stephanie Carson faced the reality that her professional future depended entirely on proving she could overcome decades of learned bias. But the most important outcome wasn't individual punishment. It was the systematic change that would prevent future discrimination through technology, training, and transparent accountability. The corporate showdown had transformed personal humiliation into institutional reform, proving that true power lies not in revenge, but in the ability to create lasting change that makes discrimination impossible to hide and financially catastrophic to maintain. The transformation began immediately with surgical precision. Derek Mitchell's security escort became a symbol watched by thousands online as Zara's live stream captured his final moments as an automotive professional. His badge was deactivated, corporate vehicle repossessed, and personal belongings packed into a single cardboard box. 23 years of sales success erased by one afternoon of systematic discrimination. Bradley Hoffman's humiliation was more complex, carrying the weight of lost authority and public shame. His corner office was cleared within an hour, personal effects relocated to a junior sales desk, positioned strategically where every customer could see his demotion. The message was unmistakable. Discrimination destroys careers. But the most significant immediate change was Amara's promotion of Terrence Williams to floor supervisor. His quiet integrity during the crisis earned him authority over the same colleagues who had ignored his discomfort with their discriminatory practices. Terrence demonstrated moral courage when it mattered, Amara announced to the remaining staff. That's the leadership quality we need going forward. Technology-driven solutions were implemented within hours, not weeks. Fair Treatment AI systems began monitoring all customer interactions in real time, analyzing speech patterns, response times, and service quality metrics across demographic categories. Any deviation from equitable treatment triggered immediate alerts to corporate compliance teams. Customer feedback tablets were installed at every service station, allowing anonymous reporting of discrimination with direct lines to corporate legal departments. The days of hidden bias were ending through transparent accountability. Video monitoring protocols transformed every interaction into documented evidence. Body cameras became mandatory for all sales staff, creating an unalterable record of customer service quality that made discrimination legally and professionally suicidal. The financial impact was immediate and measurable. Zara's viral live stream had reached 2.3 million views across platforms, generating unprecedented attention that actually increased legitimate customer traffic. People wanted to witness the dealership where systematic change was happening in real time. Kennedy Adams' LinkedIn article became the most shared business story of the month, reaching 500,000 readers and generating responses from corporate leaders across multiple industries. The case study was being analyzed in business schools before the first day was complete. Local NAACP chapter president Dr. Angela Washington, no relation to Amara, issued a statement praising the corporate response. This represents the kind of immediate, systematic accountability that transforms industries. Ms. Thompson has created a model for corporate justice. The stock market responded positively to news of the reforms. Automotive Holdings Group shares increased 8% as investors recognized that proactive diversity initiatives reduce legal liability while expanding customer markets. Stephanie Carson's journey became the most watched redemption arc. Her mandatory 40-hour bias training was conducted publicly through the dealership's social media channels, creating transparent accountability that demonstrated genuine institutional change rather than cosmetic adjustments. I never realized how my assumptions were affecting real people's lives, Stephanie admitted during a recorded training session. Seeing my behavior through Ms. Thompson's experience was devastating and necessary. Her transformation from discriminator to advocate became a powerful example of how systematic education could overcome learned prejudices. The community impact extended far beyond individual punishment. Amara's establishment of a $250,000 investment fund for affected customers created a model for restorative justice that addressed past harm while preventing future discrimination. Local civil rights organizations received funding for advocacy programs, creating ongoing partnerships that embedded accountability into daily operations rather than treating diversity as an annual compliance exercise. The systematic changes attracted national attention from congressional representatives who invited Amara to testify about corporate accountability mechanisms. Her measured response to discrimination was being studied as an alternative to purely punitive approaches that often create defensive resistance rather than genuine reform. Harvard Business School announced plans to create a case study titled Leadership Through Crisis: Strategic Response to Workplace Discrimination. The academic recognition elevated the incident from viral moment to educational legacy. Most importantly, the changes produced measurable results within weeks. Customer satisfaction scores among minority clients increased from 45% to 78% in the first month following implementation. Revenue grew 22% as expanded customer markets recognized the dealership's commitment to equitable treatment. Employee satisfaction surveys revealed unexpected benefits. Staff members reported reduced anxiety about potential discrimination complaints because clear protocols eliminated ambiguity about appropriate behavior. When everyone knows exactly what constitutes fair treatment, it's easier to provide excellent service consistently, noted newly promoted supervisor Terrence Williams. The intellectual victory over violence and financial punishment created a sustainable model for change. Rather than destroying careers through lawsuits, Amara had rebuilt an entire organizational culture through strategic accountability and transparent reform. Zero discrimination complaints were filed in the 6 months following implementation. Not because problems were hidden, but because systematic changes had eliminated the conditions that created discriminatory practices. The dealership became a destination for diversity consultants studying effective implementation strategies. Other automotive groups began adopting Thompson standards for customer service, creating industry-wide transformation that extended far beyond a single viral incident. True power had been demonstrated through creation rather than destruction, proving that systematic change creates more lasting impact than individual punishment ever could. 6 months after the incident that transformed an industry, Elite European Motors had become the highest-rated dealership in Automotive Holdings Group's network. The Westfield location generated record revenue while maintaining 94% customer satisfaction across all demographic categories. Amara Thompson's story became more than viral content. It became a blueprint for corporate accountability that rippled through multiple industries. Her strategic response to discrimination was studied in business schools, referenced in congressional hearings, and adopted by Fortune 500 companies seeking to prevent similar crises. The National Automotive Dealers Association invited her as keynote speaker for their annual conference, where she addressed 15,000 industry professionals about the profitable reality of inclusive business practices. "Diversity isn't charity," she reminded the audience. "It's the most successful business strategy available." Her establishment of the $2 million Future Leaders Scholarship Fund created opportunities for underrepresented students pursuing business degrees, ensuring the next generation of executives would understand that discrimination isn't just morally wrong, it's financially catastrophic. The personal transformations were equally remarkable. Terrence Williams completed his MBA and became Automotive Holdings Group's first regional diversity director, overseeing implementation of Thompson standards across all 47 locations. His quiet courage during the crisis had elevated him from security guard to corporate executive. Stephanie Carson's redemption arc inspired thousands. Her transformation from discriminator to diversity advocate became the subject of a Harvard Business Review case study examining how systematic education could overcome decades of learned bias. She now leads company-wide inclusion initiatives. Even Bradley Hoffman found redemption through humility. His experience as a demoted junior associate gave him unprecedented insight into workplace hierarchy and discrimination. He became the company's most effective bias awareness trainer, speaking at conferences about the personal cost of prejudice. Derek Mitchell's story served as a cautionary tale throughout the automotive industry. His termination for discrimination was referenced in trade publications as a reminder that individual bias could destroy entire careers in the age of social media accountability. The legislative impact extended beyond corporate boardrooms. Congressional subcommittees referenced Amara's case when updating federal anti-discrimination enforcement guidelines. Her testimony influenced new laws requiring bias training for commissioned sales staff in 3 states. Zara Okafor's Instagram Live documentation had launched her career in social justice advocacy. Her nonprofit, Witness for Justice organization trained young people to document discrimination using mobile technology, creating a network of citizen journalists holding institutions accountable. These real-life stories prove that strategic thinking and quiet dignity create lasting change more effectively than anger or litigation. When you encounter discrimination, document everything. Know your worth. Use your platform to demand systematic accountability rather than individual revenge. Black stories like Amara's demonstrate how touching stories of professional courage can transform entire industries. These life stories remind us that true power lies in creating systems that prevent future harm rather than simply punishing past wrongs. For more stories of Black excellence transforming systematic bias through strategic leadership, subscribe to Black Voices Uncut. Share your own experiences of workplace discrimination in the comments below. Your story could inspire our next feature about professionals creating positive change through intelligent action. Tag someone who needs to see this example of strategic leadership. Share this video if you believe change comes through systematic reform, not just individual outrage. Hit that subscribe button for weekly stories of executives who understand that diversity isn't just right, it's profitable. Your voice matters. Your experience counts. Your story could be the catalyst that transforms an entire industry.